who came in second during the primary by less than 100 votes. Oster challenged the outcome, claiming that cross-party voting by Democrats made the difference and that Mannis actively recruited Democrats along the way. WATE 6 on your side reporter Elizabeth Kubel followed the challenge as it went to the state party's primary board.
A show of confidence for Eddie Mannis on Wednesday night. The Tennessee Republican Party denying his challenger's contest and reconfirming his primary victory after Gina Oster claimed his campaign actively solicited Democratic voters to vote in the Republican primary. We spoke to Mannis immediately after the party opted to keep him on the ballot. He says it gives him a big sense of relief after what he calls a tough few days and weeks.
It was important to me that the SEC really upheld the will of the voter. And I think at the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to. You can argue any of those points back and forth, and I think not many people really know. But at the end of the day, listening to the will of the voter is really what should have been done. And I'm grateful for the confidence that the 43 members had in me. And so it's just a relief for, a day or two and then on and fighting hard. There's a lot more pressure now than ever before. I got a lot riding on me at this point, and so we're going to work hard.
Mannis says he is ready to listen to voters in District 18 who didn't vote for him, hear their concerns, and work for their votes.
I want to make a difference, and I just didn't want to, if I win in the general, I didn't want to be handicapped to the point where people would say, oh, well, you didn't really get it, or you didn't really deserve it, or I just want to go there and make a difference and do everything I can do for the people of District 18. And so that's what I'm going to work toward.
Meantime, his Republican challenger, Gina Oster, who contested the election results, says she is going to move on and take this as a learning experience.
I'm okay. I stood up for something that I believed in, and it was definitely not popular. It's been a hard few weeks that I decided to do that, but for me, it was right because I've been a Republican all my life, and I value our party, and I feel like that if you're going to have rules, you need to stick by those rules. The SEC does definitely not need a vouch system, because if you are a Republican, you should not have to be vouched for. Your record and your donations and your work should prove that. So that was really my main issue to bring to their attention.
And Oster says she is not considering taking any further legal action. Elizabeth Kubel, WATE 6 on your side.
Now, Mannis goes on to face Democrat Virginia Couch, who was unopposed in the primary. Now, the chair of the Knox County Democratic Party, Matt Shears, sending out this statement. While the Knox County GOP has been engaged in yet another internal ideological battle, the Knox County Democratic Party and Virginia Couch have been contacting thousands of voters and talking about the real issues that matter. Shears goes on to say, electing the GOP's candidate will do nothing to confront the far-right GOP supermajority, which has continued to embarrass the state, ignore citizens, and fail to pass meaningful and substantial legislation. Sending another Republican to rubber stamp the supermajority will harm our state. And Shears says the party's candidate, quote, will offer an independent and responsive voice for the district in Nashville rather than be another cog in the supermajority machine. From day one, Virginia Couch has had our 100% support, and we look forward to sending her to Nashville this November. All right, still to come, Marquita Bradshaw surprised a lot of people with her win in the Senate primary, beating a higher profile and better funded Democrat. Bradshaw explains what makes her stand out and why that's key to the voters she's trying to reach. You're watching Tennessee This Week on WATE 6 on your side.
If you have Medicare and Medicaid, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee is here to offer you even more benefits with a Blue Care Plus plan at no extra cost.
My Blue Care Plus plan means I have someone right here in Tennessee on the other end of the phone when I call.
It means I have people like Allie who listen and really care.
It means I get more medical, dental, and vision benefits.
Like $5,000 for dental care.
And $1,200 for hundreds of over-the-counter items.
Plus 100 rides for doctors and pharmacy visits. That's a lot of rides.
As a not-for-profit with a mission to serve, we're right here for you and with you.
I love having Tori in my corner. Everybody needs a Tori.
You can enroll in a Blue Care Plus plan at any time.
Get these great benefits and more. Call 833-807-1234. That's 833-807-1234.
I'm a Vietnam-era veteran, and I know firsthand what it was like for the guys coming back. And I've made it my mission to do whatever I can to change that.
This is a prayer answered. We wanted to do more.
We can get a lot more food, get a lot more. Feed 160 people.
God said go into all the world, not just Kofi.
Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. Marquita Bradshaw came out on top in the Democratic primary for Tennessee's soon-to-be open Senate seat, beating out James Mackler, who had been considered essentially a shoo-in. Josh Smith now from our Tri-Cities affiliate, WJHL, connected with Bradshaw this week over Zoom for an in-depth look at how she made it happen.
Marquita Bradshaw is the Democratic nominee for United States Senate in Tennessee. Marquita Bradshaw, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Josh, for having me.
I want to give our viewers a chance to get to know you better. When you won in August, some called it a stunning moment in the August primaries, one of the big surprises of the August primary. Were you surprised that you won the Democratic nominee for Senate?
Absolutely not. I was not surprised because I was already seeing the movement happen. And even though I didn't raise a lot of money in the primary, it was where those dollars were coming from and who those dollars were coming from. And they were coming from hardworking families just like me and my family. And it wasn't a whole lot. It would be $1 and $2 coming from Johnson City, from somebody who said that they were a grocery cart pusher. And from Sweetwater, Tennessee, from Nashville, Memphis, up in Lake County, and all over Tennessee, and they were small dollar donors up to like 350. And I knew that they were connected to families. And I knew that we had a pathway to victory before we started this race. And when I saw people giving politically for the first time and with their hard-earned dollars, some of them making just minimum wage, I knew where we were headed. And we were headed straight to the White House.
You were facing Democrats who had the support of some big-name Democrats from across the state who had raised a lot of money. What message do you feel your election to be the nominee should send to not only Democrats, but also to Republicans and to all Tennesseans about where we are politically in this state right now?
People want a representative that represent hardworking families that live the issues just like they do. The cookie cutter candidate where the lines are rehearsed and the same and not responding to what people are experiencing at the time was what they rejected. They rejected having another person that was with a lot of means representing hardworking families. We deserve, when I say we, I'm experiencing the same thing that a lot of people are experiencing, making less than $15 an hour, having to file bankruptcy because of medical bills, and knowing what it took to be a single mom and have my son go through public education.
Do you have the support, or have you been able to sense the support from the Tennessee Democratic Party and from those other Tennessee Democrats who didn't support your primary run? Have they reached out to you, and do you feel like you have the party's support as you move forward?
Primaries are an important part of the political process. Each person galvanized a base. They brought people in. And the base that I brought in were people who were used to being marginalized, whose voices have been left out of the political process, like mine. And that's what is so amazing. These are hard to reach voters, young voters, and voters that are voting for the first time, even though they've been registered to vote. And so with all of those bases being cater to during the primary, it makes it easier to bring those bases together to secure the general. And so everybody's on board.
Are you here? You know, there's a statewide party though, and are they coming to you and are they offering support?
Absolutely, absolutely. We are working together to execute a plan to go through all 9 congressional districts and not only support me as the top of the ticket candidate, I am supporting down ballot candidates across the state of Tennessee.
And how remarkable for you. I'm sure you must be having these moments. I certainly would be. I think most of our viewers would be, if they are in your shoes and you are by your own description, a middle-class working single mother, and you turn around and you are the first woman of color chosen to represent a major political party in a statewide election. You made history. You are now talking about down ballot candidates and you are the top tier. Are you having these moments where you're going, what in the world just happened?
Well, you know, I'm a little embarrassed that it took this long to happen, right? It's been 100 years since women had the right to vote. And then still some women, like Black women and people of color, were left out of that process years ago. But now here we are right now, and we're talking about the first Black to do anything. We have to look and reflect upon our culture and what it is that we stand for and where we want to go. It's time to put racism that has kept people from these positions to bed and bury it.
So I hear you saying it's not. Don't let me misquote you or misunderstand. You're saying you're proud of what you've accomplished, but you used the word embarrassed. I mean, I don't want to miss that.
Yeah, we should be embarrassed as a state that this has happened now. That we need to work harder to make sure that more people are included in this process. Not only a Black woman, but also maybe somebody that's an immigrant. Maybe somebody whose social economic status is different. Some people consider me middle class. I consider myself working class because sometimes if I don't make enough hourly, then I go without something. And this is a time where we can just move forward as a country, that we have true representation from all the people and stop just having a certain class of people represented well, because right now Wall Street and big businesses, they have true representation, and that's where the dollars have followed, because those are their friends in the U.S. Senate, right? Those are the ones that they identify with. But when it comes to hardworking families, we have not received the relief that we needed to be able to support us during a COVID-19 pandemic.
You know, many candidates who are running for Senate, Ms. Bradshaw, are working at it full time. They get up every day. They essentially either don't have to work or they stop their work and they run for Senate and they become a full-time candidate. Is that the case for you? And if not, what is your day like? As I understand it, you are still working to support your son and your family. Give us an idea of what your day is like as a full-time candidate for Senate.
Well, I work full-time, as many hours as I can, 3 days a week. Sometimes I work 10 hours, sometimes I work 15, depending on what the schedule allots, like most Americans. And I work full-time as a candidate, too. And sometimes, like right now, I'm on my break to talk to you. And so this is not something different from what most people have to do. Some people have to have 2 to 3 jobs to make ends meet. And that's not living. We need to build an economy that works for hardworking families, that builds healthy and safe communities where people live, learn, work, worship, and recreate. And we do that by strengthening 3 major pillars. Of course, everybody needs health care that includes mental health and also addiction wraparound services. But the other parts of the 3 pillars that are foundational is having an environment with a just transition away from pollution, an economy that works for hardworking families, and a high-class, high-quality educational system that supports our children into being successful and with a lifelong learning. So when our society changes with new technologies, that people in the workforce can get the training that they need in order to keep providing for their family. You can't separate one without the other, and they're all intertwined.
And again, that was Josh Smith reporting. Now, Bradshaw will face Republican Bill Hagerty on the ballot in November. Hagerty defeated Manny Sethi in the GOP primary. Hagerty on the campaign trail this week met with West Tennessee leaders and law enforcement officials and met with workers in the motor coach industry. The two, by the way, now facing off for the Senate seat that is opening up as current Senator Lamar Alexander retires. All right, still to come, we talk with our panel of pundits about Bradshaw's candidacy and get their take on the District 18 race. Matter of fact, one of our pundits, part of the GOP's process in this decision. You're watching Tennessee This Week on WATE, 6 on your side.
Wedemart Keith takes pride in protecting the rights of injured workers. Suffering an injury while at work is a traumatic experience and financial burden. Your job is to recover, and our job is to recover for you.
The name to know and trust. It's the Sevier County Fair, presented by Farm Bureau, September 1st through the 7th at the Sevier County Fairgrounds. Check out the exhibit hall and the Dolly Look-alike contest. And new this year, the International Bulls and Bronx Rodeo, September 6th and 7th. Ride the rides on the Midway. And you can be sure that community safety is priority, with social distancing, sanitizing, and current county guidelines being practiced. The Sevier County Fair, presented by Farm Bureau. It's more fun than you can shake a turkey leg at.
Huntsville Manor is a post-acute and rehabilitation center in Huntsville, Tennessee. Our staff are what makes Huntsville Manor different. They are our heroes, and we want to introduce them to you. It's our people that makes us special. Love, caring, and compassion. Huntsville Manor in Huntsville. Come visit us.
Wedemart Keith takes pride in protecting the rights of injured workers. We will fight for the compensation you deserve.
Wedemart Keith, the name to know and trust.
All right, welcome back, everyone. I want to welcome our pundits back here to Tennessee This Week. Courtney Piper, Craig Griffith, and James Corcoran. Great to have all of you here with us. We're going to talk, first of all, about kind of the developments we saw this week involving House District 18, the race there, Eddie Mannis, Gina Oster, and what kind of unveiled and what came about this week. And James, I want to start with you, and we need to first of all point out that you're a member of the GOP State Executive Committee. So we do want to bring that to light. But I do want to start with you. Just kind of walk us through, first of all, your thoughts, if you can, how you voted, and then what really was the process and how this all played out.
I voted in favor of keeping Eddie Mannis on the ballot. You know, there was some controversy early on in the race as to whether or not he was, quote, a bona fide Republican. But under our bylaws, the state party chair made that decision. And quite frankly, I think the view and the prevailing view amongst the party was once the voters have spoken, that we'd be doing a grave disservice to our own party and our own voters if we were to then, after the fact, go back and undo the will of the people. So both candidates, you know, ran hard races. It came very close. But at the end of the day, to try to undo the results of that election based on, quite frankly, not a lot of proof. Ms. Oster's theory was that there was a number of Democratic voters which crossed over and that somehow influenced the election. The trouble with that is, you know, we are a state that has open primaries, and you know that happens. And wanted to make a total power grab. Essentially, we could undo any election we wanted if we were to start doing it based on that type of theory. So I'm very proud. I think we made the right decision to let the voters' will stand.
Yeah, so there were a lot of issues there that could have come out even of how you voted on this one and how this one would have turned out. I do want to ask you, though, real quick, too, as far as the GOP now moving forward in this race, kind of how do you see your party now moving forward?
Well, it's a very closely drawn district. It came within 3 points 2 years ago. Now, that being said, this is a presidential year, so turnout will be a little bit higher, so it might be closer to the 2016 race in which Martin Daniel won pretty handily, who is the the current holder of that seat. So I think it remains to be seen. Obviously, Mr. Daniel had some of his own negatives, and I think Eddie Mannis is someone I think that can, for obvious reasons, reach across the aisle. I think he has a broad base of appeal. So I do think he is very well situated to be very successful in the general election.
Corleen, let me get your thoughts on this now. Then now Eddie Mannis is in place on the GOP side. What are you thinking now as you look ahead to this race coming up?
You know, this whole challenge just seemed like it was coming from a sore loser, quite frankly. And you know, I was glad to see that the state executive committee did uphold the election and the will of the people, because, like James said, it does the entire party, really the entire voting system, a disservice if folks within the establishment just say, well, you know, our person didn't win and we really want them to win, and we didn't really love the results of the election, so we're just going to change it. You know, you can't do that. We have open primaries, and you know, independents and Democrats can vote in a Republican primary and vice versa. So this seat is actually very winnable for Democrats. Phil Bredesen actually won this district when he ran for United States Senate 2 years ago, and Greg McKay came within just a couple of percentage points of beating Martin Daniel in this race. So this is a very winnable seat for Democrats, and I think if Virginia Couch works her tail off, she could get this.
Craig, your thoughts? How's this going to play out? First of all, kind of how did it play out this week for you? Any surprises there? And then also looking ahead.
No, I think it's been said before, the will of the people had been expressed, and the voice, and to overturn that vote and put someone else in there would have opened up a Pandora's box in future elections, as has been pointed out about, you know, people coming back and trying to get the results of the election overturned for another reason. But, you know, I think in the Republican side of this primary, there were about 6,000 votes cast, and in the Democratic side, there was only about 3,000 votes. So I think the path to victory for Eddie Mannis, he has to work hard and get out there and campaign against his Democratic challenger. But I think there is a winning path out there for him. So I hope that there weren't too many feathers ruffled inside the GOP. If there were and he loses support, then it could be a close race.
All right. Hey, let's switch it up here a little bit. Let's talk about Marquita Bradshaw. I know on election night, everybody was like, wait a minute. We kind of stopped in our tracks. We thought Mackler was going to take this as far as the Democrats were concerned in the race for the Senate. She describes herself as not middle class, but working class, making less than $15 an hour. Matter of fact, she even had a quote saying that she's one job away from middle class, one job lost, being away from poverty. Looking at how this played out on the Democrat side, what do you think moving forward now? What does this say now as far as voters and how they look at the candidates? I mean, she bills herself as someone, I'm right there with you on your level. I'm not a politician. I don't have that background. Are we seeing a trend starting to change here, Craig? I mean, how things are starting to play out. It's just not, you know, you have Bill Haggerty now on one side and Marquita Bradshaw on the other side here. Two totally different, you know, parts of the spectrum.
Well, I admire her for being the first African-American woman to be on the ballot for a Senate seat. Her story is a one to be admired. But I don't know if it wasn't a time and place issue that the candidate you spoke of, Mackler, just didn't catch on in very many places. Even though he had all the money he apparently needed to run, he apparently didn't use it wisely. And so her story is commendable, and I think, you know, it serves us well to have an individual like that on the ballot. That said, 2 years ago in the last Senate general election, you had a much better funded Democratic candidate in Phil Bredesen, who had much better name recognition, and he won by 11 points. So I don't see that the race will be much different this time.
Courtney, what do you think? Kind of moving forward here, looking at Marquita now.
Yeah, Marquita really, as she said, tapped into a voting base that had felt marginalized. And so to the extent that Democrats can continue to tap into those potential voters and appeal to them and motivate them to go to the polls, this is great for Democrats. I think the the eternal sin with James Mackler is that he had run for United States Senate before. And I think his campaign thought, well, people know us. They know what we're about. We've run for this before. And so, people know who we are. Maybe we don't necessarily have to do all the work that we did before because people already know us. Let's hold back for the general election. And that is the cardinal sin of campaigns. I think his campaign forgot that he actually dropped out of that race early. So it was really only the establishment or in the know Democrats that really, really knew him well. The broad majority of Tennessee voters probably didn't know him as well as they should have.
James, let me ask you then, looking ahead now, is there something that the Hagerty campaign takes away from this and learns from this possibly, because Bradshaw, with her background and the following that she's starting to pick up here, or is it not a concern at all for them?
I mean, I'd say, to some extent, there might be an identity politics component to it that probably applies a little bit more on the Democratic side than on the Republican side. Certainly, she's got a great story. I'm sure she's going to work hard, but at the end of the day, voters, more than anything else, they pick their candidates based on ideology. And Tennessee, the overwhelming majority of voters are conservative leaning. So at the end of the day, the path is pretty clear to the Republican candidate. I'm sure everyone's going to go out there and meet as many voters as they can. As close as they're going to with Bredesen 2 years ago.
All right,
cut up there.
Lost you a little bit there, but I think we got the message that was coming through. But again, it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. Craig, any final thoughts as we kind of wrap this one up?
No, now it's all a matter. We're in the sprint
as far as campaigning. So I mean,
yeah, we're in the sprint to the till election day, and so it's now all a matter of getting your base out to vote for you.
Yeah, and how do you do that, Courtney, these days? I mean, I know we're short on time here, but how do you get out there and do that in 2020 with COVID and everything else?
You've got to be really creative. To a certain extent, you have to ask voters to come to you in a safe, socially distant manner instead of showing up on their doorstep, spreading your potential germs everywhere. So campaigns are getting really creative, and it'll be interesting to see what happens.
All right, guys, we appreciate it. We're out of time. Thank you so much for your time. We want to thank for everyone for tuning in as well. And as always, look forward to seeing you right back here next week for Tennessee This Week.
The views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Nexstar Broadcasting.